Just keep on.
Good evening, board members. My name is Michelle Lopez. I'm from the law offices of Youngman and Core. Our office serves as general counsel for Education for Change Public Schools, petitioners for EPIC Charter School. We were asked to provide a legal opinion on the contents of the charter petition. It is the legal opinion of our office that the contents of the charter petition before you for the establishment of EPIC Charter School meets or exceeds the legal requirements for the content of a charter petition under Education Code Section 47605. At the outset, we point out that the Education Code provides specific guidance to a school district governing board to approve the establishment of charter schools. Education Code Section 47605B states, in reviewing petitions for the establishment of charter schools, the chartering authority shall be guided by the intent of the legislature that charter schools are and should become an integral part of the California educational system, and that establishment of charter schools should be encouraged. Education Code Section 47605B also provides the legal basis for the denial of a charter petition, stating that the governing board of a school district shall grant a charter for the operation of a school if it is satisfied that granting it is consistent with sound educational practice. And you cannot deny a petition without written factual findings for the petition, setting forth specific facts to support one or more of the following findings. The charter school presents an unsound educational program. Petitioners are demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement the program. It does not contain the number of signatures or the required affirmations, or the petition does not contain reasonably comprehensive descriptions of the 16 required elements. Thus, the law is written such that the default position is for a school district governing board to approve a charter petition unless it makes written factual findings to deny. Following an extensive review of the charter petition against the requirements of the Ed Code and OUC board policy, our office believes there is no legal basis for denial of the charter. Our opinion is supported by your staff report, with which we enthusiastically concur. We request your support of the EPIC Charter School tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emily Ramirez, and I am a 5th grade student at Achieve Academy. And today I wanted to tell you a little bit about EPIC. I'm very interested in going to EPIC because it sounds very different from other schools. And it also seems like we have a lot of responsibility, and that helps us for high school and college. And another thing is we work on projects together, and that will help us in our social skills. And another thing is, in EPIC, we will learn about science and engineering, which I personally love, and I think EPIC should be a school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alex Scu, and I'm an SSA, which is a school site assistant and librarian for Achieving World Academy, which is one of the schools that is in the World in the Education for Change Charter District. I actually want this school to be open. I worked very hard with both parents and students during the summer to get all the petitions signed, to basically bring the information to all of the parents, and just worked very hard with everybody here. As you saw, one of the students here, Emily Ramirez, is one of the kids that I've worked very close with. She is a very bright child who actually wants to go to this school. She enjoys working at the schools that we have open right now. She helps the teachers out. She's a very important child in our schools, as all of our children are. We actually work together as a family, not just as a community. We bring everything possible to help these kids succeed in their lives. And that's what I want to see for every single one of the kids in our schools, to basically go to college and succeed. And one of these, EPIC, the school that we're going to open up, is the school that I want to see open because it brings a new learning method to our districts that I want everybody to have a chance to go and explore. So please help us open this petition, this charter up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Chris Martinez. I'm the Student Support Specialist at World and Achieve Academy. I deal with a lot of behavior at the school from K through 5th grade. I'm really excited. One of the things that EPIC will bring, if you guys grant this opportunity to us, it will be quality education below 580 out in the flatlands. I'm really excited. Just going back to 2000, back when I was in middle school, my mom brought me to a middle school that was close to the hills, all the way from 98. From the hood is what I call. And she would say, if I take you up to the hills, you will get a better education. Just for that. I went up to the hills, and what did I found? Someone that didn't look like me, someone that I couldn't relate to. It was real difficult for me coming from a third world country at the age of 10 and knowing that coming to a country where it's hopes and dreams, no one can really care about me. After that, my last year in middle school, I got shot. None of the teachers bothered to come tell me, hey, how are you feeling? What's going on? And I tell you what, Epic will be epic because they will care. They will cater you. They will cater to the families. And something that school back in 2000 did, my mom catered to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening.
I'm Michael Hatcher. I'm the prospective principal of EPIC. On behalf of the EPIC team and Education for Change, I'd like to thank you for the staff report and for the rigorous charter school evaluation process here in Oakland. We'd also like to thank Ms. Bradford. The feedback she gave us was invaluable, and for the Office of Diverse and Quality Programs. EPIC and Education for Change are deeply committed to the district vision of quality community schools in the neighborhood. We're also deeply committed and dedicated to making sure that we work with Oakland in partnership to create a quality pre-K-12 pipeline in the Fruitvale neighborhoods. And that's really all we have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm still Janana Pine. I'm still a teacher and a parent. And I urge you to vote no on this charter proposal as well. I am a teacher in OUSD and a parent of students who have been in Oakland schools. We chose to keep our children in the public schools to be a part of the rich and diverse community that is such a benefit of living in the Bay Area. Recent research shows how charters are actually serving to resegregate our schools, which I vigorously argue does not make for sound educational program or policy. Perhaps a partnership agreement could be explored instead that could keep the schools part of OUSD to assure full access by all OUSD students and monitor the diversity of the student body more closely. Also, remaining as part of OUSD would allow for greater sharing of gains and student outcomes resulting from innovations. I'd like to see more of that and less charters.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having us here. My name is Reina Cabezas. I'm a teacher at Lazier Charter Academy, also a parent of a student, of a 7th grader that goes there. I'm very happy to have brought him out of his private school into an OUSD Oakland charter school that I happily serve at. I leverage my passion for social justice as well as the technology I use in order to extend one continuum of education to every student that I see. I was trying to pull up some messages that I have received from students telling me, Ms. Cabezas, I figured out how to do this tonight. And it's 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night. I had a 1st grader tell me, I have learned how to log into my account and I don't need that index card that we use to remind me of what my username and password is. So now he can post and share and collaborate and find information in my class and in all of his other classes with the rest of his colleagues and with all of the teachers at Lazier. And I hope to go to EPIC and open EPIC and do the same thing with all the students that will be at EPIC. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board of Directors, Superintendent Yee, Office of Diverse and Quality Providers. I think I got that wrong. My name is Hasten Thomas. I am the CEO of Education for Change Public Schools. I think one of the things that really excites me about this particular school, my background has been entirely in middle school. So I was at Bret Harte Middle School, I was at Claremont, and then I got to Open Ascend. And I get really excited by this idea of like, what do adolescents need? And how are we really thinking about what they need when we think about innovating? So not innovating for the sake of innovating, but idea of like, how does technology get leveraged to serve our, I think, most vulnerable youth, right? So I feel like we are in partnership, we are building a school that I've never seen before. Like, it's gonna have some pieces of gamification, and it's gonna have blended learning, it's gonna have all this technology integration and maker spaces and STEM, and it excites me to think that my kid could go there someday. It excites me to think that this is a real option in the Fruitvale. And I'm really excited because the other piece, of course, is that we have partnered with Oakland Unified School District around the Gates Personalized Learning Initiative. And that means that we will be able to really have a formal venue to share our learnings around this blended learning implementation, to potentially collaborate around secondary personalized learning system-wide. I had an opportunity today to talk about sort of what I hope for this partnership, and what I hope is actually that we see the best of blended learning seen across the city, not just at EPIC, but across all of the Oakland Unified School District middle schools, because I think the idea that kids can become self-directed learners who can manage their own learning, who have authentic opportunities to set goals, reflect, collect data, get feedback. That's exciting, not just for EPIC, but for our citywide initiative. So thank you very much for this evening. I look forward to working with you moving forward.
Thank you.
Jim Mordecai speaking as an individual. This is privatization. Education for change is education for shortchanging public education in America. And what happened was Randy Ward, the state takeover, and the big money, the Broad people, and all that type of stuff, they were behind setting up this type of thing. People from your staff turned around, and now she's CEO of a charter school that's draining the resources out of this place. She brought her relationships to elementary school principals, encouraged them to come to you for a charter and take them out of this, out of our district here. It's frustrating. But the other side of the coin is the parents and the employees. They don't have any rights. None of these charter schools are unionized. So you have inexperienced teachers, and you have a churn. It is recognized all over the nation, is that when you have a charter school, there's a constant churn. Now, some charter schools are better than others, and the same thing for public schools. It comes out to be about the same. But the difference is you're destroying public education, and you're sitting here and voting to destroy public education. You're voting to allow parents who may or may not know, or they may be, if they're not ignorant, they are ignoring the fact that they have less rights, that there is not a school board that you could get a minute to speak to. You don't have any minute to speak to charter school unless it gives you that minute. And the other thing is, none of these parents look at the charter to see whether or not some of those rights that they lose might be embedded in the charter, because legally they could be that, but they're not.
Thank you.
Director London, I appreciate your comments. I'm still a little confused at some folks. We're going to charter school ourselves out of business. I do understand that 3 of you ran on a pro-charter platform. And I also understand, and I'm not sure about this, that 3 of you serve on a charter school board, which to me should be a conflict of interest. But my question is, when do we stop? We have over 41 schools that are charter. Every time we open a new charter, we lose Oakland Public Schools, we lose revenue. I looked at, and I don't want you to really quote me on this, but I do have all of the APIs. And I'm missing some charter, but out of the top 10, there's only 1 charter school out of the top 10, and they're number 10. So 9 of our schools are public, and they're doing better than the charter. If you look at the top 15, there are only 2. So our Oakland Public Schools at the elementary level are doing better than they are. So there's a false sense of academic achievement. If you look at the top 20, there are only 5. You go to the top 30, there are only 6 charter schools out of 30. If you look at the top 40, there are only 8. So I guess my question is, are we going to end up with all charters, and then we go vouchers, and then we just eliminate all public schools, and we don't need a board? That's where we're headed. So over here we got linked learning. We're going to do all these great things. We're going to have equity, et cetera, and then over here we keep opening more charter schools. This board has an obligation to say no and make them go to the county, and the county then has to address it, or they go to the state. I do not understand some of our new board members saying yes. I really do not understand. If they understand the impact, and we're already tight money-wise, without this new money coming in, we'd probably be in a bigger mess. So when is enough charters enough?
Thank you. Okay, any discussion on the motion? Okay, can we get a roll call on the vote?
I'm sorry, President Dr. Sheba.
Yes. Director Dobbins.
Great, I'm sorry, to my colleagues, and sorry I'm not there personally. I think if I can just say a couple points. I think collectively, first of all, again, sorry for not being in person. I understand it's a big crowd tonight, so it's great to see people excited about education. I think the board collectively, at least I can speak for myself, feel how Director London and how Mr. Tapscott just explained and Mr. Mordecai, their sentiments. We understand, we get it. But I also think, as an attorney, I've always kind of followed the policy of, well, if you can pass muster through our district, and if you can pass muster, and obviously, I believe it was an attorney who just spoke about the validity of it. And I think it begs a broader conversation with our board and with the community about how we're going to actually integrate all the charters, because whether we like it or not, legally they have a right to exist, and the attorney laid out the grounds for denying a charter. I think those different public here. So while we have sentiments and while we do understand this is hurting our district as a whole in terms of financial to the Oakland Unified School District, and as board members, we have a charge for the Oakland Unified School District. I think ultimately the way of things is basically consistent with, well, what's the legality of it. And, I understand that people say, well, it's a kick at the county, the state, but in reality, it's just, we're just pushing numbers around. So that's kind of my comments. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Director Dobbins, we had a little bit difficulty in understanding or hearing what you were saying.
Okay, well,
my sense of it was you're saying that we're in it's a much bigger context, and while we may share the sentiment of Director London that there was a kind of a bigger legal framework in which we have to make our decision.
That's in essence. I'm sorry for the bad connection, and I'm not feeling well out here from North Carolina to Shepherd, Kennedy anyway. So, ultimately, while our personal feelings may dictate one thing, I feel as a board trustee, my role is to follow the law, and in essence, the attorney laid out, spelled out again what our parameters are. So, while personally I have other visions or other ideas, it does beg the question: what as I know Dr. Eads is moving forward with this. Collectively as a board, we need to address this issue. Or as Ms. Chapman said, we may, out-chart ourselves. So right. That was my defense. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Director Torres.
So this is a difficult decision for me to make with regard to this school. What I think I wanted to say that differentiates this application is that we have someone coming forward, Hazen Thomas, with experience, having worked in the district, having worked and specialized in middle school, having a successful elementary school. I was able to visit an open house they had in the spring. Saw some very interesting work by these young students, very moving, very touching, meeting the families, very diverse, very engaged, and dedicated families, indeed, of all backgrounds. So it was the epitome of what our schools should look like, because most of the time I don't see but one thing: all black and brown and no white people, or the 10% white and mostly black and brown. So I think that this school is positioned to be successful because there's already a track record. I also feel conflicted when earlier in the evening we let a team present themselves as to how they're improving our high schools, all the bells and whistles. And yes, there was a very long list of what they need to do that work, But this board is committed, and we have a superintendent who is extremely committed and everywhere and anywhere out, making sure that it's going to happen for our high schools, that they shouldn't have to hear, like my daughter heard at registration from the fellow tech students, this is the only high school to go to in Oakland. The rest are horrible. And I didn't think that was an appropriate thing for a kid to say, but it was said. And had a little talk with my kid about never saying something like that ever. So the fact of the matter is that I'm mystified by the vote myself, because not only do they not have a track record, but they're going for 6 through 12 right out the gate. So it's disturbing to me. But nonetheless, this is a middle school, and my hope is that in talking with Ms. Thomas about working with us as a district, because this is a community that is makes up students for Fremont High. And as we know, Fremont High's numbers go down and keep going down, and we are slated to build a new school. And instead of build it and they will come, it's going to be the opposite. Build it and no one will come. And I dread that day that that new school is open, or that new building is built, if it's empty. So I sure hope that we will have a partnership with what I believe is going to be a successful middle school, because I can foresee that this is going to pass. But in any event, I definitely wanted to share my sentiment and my consciousness as well as Director Jody London, that these are difficult decisions to make when we have this many in this city, and we're gonna be closing public schools. No doubt, we're gonna be closing public schools. This is another item that I foresee is happening, and that's not gonna be fun. And I hope you all come to those meetings when we're being screamed at and yelled at and potentially threatened, which is why we have so many officers here, when we're closing schools because of having too many charters. So nonetheless, I just had to say my piece. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Madam Vice President.
You're gonna, my brain was moving really slow last time. So I'm just gonna ask this general question, sorry for clarification with the staff. Can you create conditions, you know, we have this legal obligation and the staff makes a recommendation, but is there an ability for us to actually make some conditions that the board feels important to, you know, monitor and watch?
That depends.
Okay, because I think to Director Torres's part, and I apologize, I'm stuck on EBIA. In that, you know, maybe, I don't know if there's a way for us to come back and talk about or articulate, maybe that's where even Director Dobbins was going around a larger conversation, that maybe there are some kind of just values and conditions that we may need, while we legally are saying yes to some things, that we are able to articulate more deeply some of the just standards that I think that we really have. And so one of the things I wanted to even try is, like, can you put a percentage of, you know, ethnic groups that are there, or the number of EL learners or anything like that? Can you make those kind of recommendations?
Director Hodges, if you're specifically referring to characteristics of students that relate to things like their race and ethnicity, there are laws based on discrimination that, whether it's in favor of or an obstacle towards, either of which discriminates a judgment call based on a student's race and ethnicity, is probably not necessarily a condition that we could apply to a condition for enrollment. That doesn't mean any list of other rationale for conditions associated with the charter couldn't be proposed, but something related to race and ethnicity enrollment probably would not be applicable.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for indulging me, Mr. President.
Typically, I wouldn't speak on this matter. I agree with Director Dobbins. I think there is a larger legal framework in our responsibility to follow the law and make decisions in that context. And at the same time, what I said in the public hearing on this charter application is that the question about whether the Fruitvale neighborhood needs another middle school. And the answer for me at that public hearing was no. And so there's two things about it real quickly, because this is when we talk about partnership, we got to move beyond a transactional partnership, but a partnership that is really looking at how we invest public taxpayer money that are both going to the district and going to charter schools, and deploying those resources in the best possible way that's going to provide. It's a very limited and finite amount of money that we have, and that we have to be able to deploy this throughout the city so that as many young people as possible are served in a very excellent way. And the school district, under great deal of public pressure, grassroots community pressure throughout Oakland, but particularly based in the Fruitvale neighborhood, moved this school district to enormous lengths to build, to invest millions and millions of dollars to build brand new school campuses. The Ascend campus, the Learning Without Limits campus, the Cesar Chavez complex, to redesign the Urban Promise Academy, to create small schools, break up the Jefferson campus and what have you. And this district actually seeded Education for Change as yet another alternative for both district, newly designed district schools, small schools, and newly designed charter schools. And so my feeling is that we get into a lot of pettiness that is not based among the parents or the teachers that are advocating, but I think that the big dogs, including us here on the board, that we need to be far greater and grander in our vision about how we deploy these resources. I believe that everybody knows what's going on in the Fruitvale neighborhood as far as what the district and what the charter community is trying to do. And I would hope that as we move forward, that partnership moves from transaction and into a real, genuine, authentic partnership. And I'm not going to get into blame, he said, she said stuff. That's just nonsense, and we just have to stop it. And so, having said that, I'm going to support this petition based on the Dobbins doctrine. And let's call for the vote. Director London.
Thank you. I did speak quite extensively on the last decision, but there was something that I didn't say that I had in my notes. And I actually have a challenge to the community. It's somewhat aligned with what you just said, President Kakashiba. I think that we need to come together as a unified district that is serving kids. And I think that our teachers union and our charter schools are not in dialogue. And I challenge you all to get in dialogue. And I think that we as the district staff need to work to channel ideas from the community that will bring innovation to our schools without requiring people to resort to developing a charter petition. And I'm kind of looking at you, Superintendent, because I really believe that our staff is not sufficiently welcoming. You all have sat here with me and heard me listen to question everybody about how did you engage with the district. I'm just telling you my opinion. You do not have to respond. I'm not asking for a response at this point. We need to work on one. And I also want to say that I believe that the charter law in California is different from charter laws in other states. And I see some real problems with that charter law. And when I vote no on these charters, I consider it an act of civil disobedience on my own part. Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you. Director London, I really respect your urging for initiating that dialogue. And based upon the diverse provider framework which the board adopted 2 years ago, I and my staff have begun that dialogue.
Okay, Madam Vice President.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. It's something that you said, Director Kakashiba, President, that I think is really important around like parents and young people really kind of being at the center of this movement and the development of it. You know, we were pushed in a lot of ways to do something really different. And I think that we need to continue to push. I want to support parents to really do that. I feel like, again, EBIA pushed me because all of a sudden I saw power and privilege using the very tool that most oppressed communities have figured out how to use and build their own schools. And so that's my quagmire, right? Because I don't want to advance privilege in any kind of way. And I don't want to play politics or do any of those things, you know, President Kakashiba, but I do feel like you're right. What sits at the center of this, and how do we give, you know, folks that typically have no choice and are not being educated in our system really be able to own this? And so, yeah, the challenge will be whether or not Fremont is going to watch what EPIC does and allow that connection to be made. So that's what I felt like I heard you say, President Kakashiba, getting away from some transactional, what does that really mean and what does that look like? And so that is an OEA, that is, you know, a bargaining unit, kind of, I don't know what it is. I feel like it's 21st century kind of energy that we need to move into around this, is, you know what I mean? I can't deal with the conspiracies or anything like that because my kids are dying. And there's a young man who walks, and I'm looking at your face about, you know, what you experienced and what you went through, and what your mom went through to put you someplace else. So I'm willing as a board to talk and work with the superintendent and staff. We've got to push our collective bargaining unit that protects teachers and protects the rights of them and creates those right kinds of conditions for them to teach our children. We've got to move off of whatever dime that's on. And then the last thing I'll just have to say is that I wholeheartedly support Michael Hatcher as the principal of EPIC School and have watched him grow and develop as an educator and be thoughtful and did tremendous work at West Oakland Middle School when it was hard and it was an uphill battle, and we almost burnt him out and almost pushed him out of education. And so I am excited about this new opportunity for you to enliven our youth and enliven our community. So I absolutely support this charter.
Okay, roll call on the motion. Oh, Director Harris.
I just wanted, Mr. Tapscott kind of alluded that he didn't know why I was voting like that. So we'll speak to it. And again, this is not about charter versus public. This is about how we get it right. And I want to remind us that Oscar Wright in 1984 said we are not doing a good job serving specifically African American male and female children. It's almost 30 years later, and this district has been moving at a glacial pace in getting that done. And so I look at my election as a mandate. James, you go in there and you get something done. And that does not mean make friends with traditional schools. That does not mean make friends with charter schools. That means making sure that traditional and charter schools serve black kids and Latino kids, because that's who's in my district. And when are we going to get it through our head that we work for the same team? That as long as we stand up here and say, well, you're wrong, and that's a charter school, and you're taking money, at some point we'll realize we're serving children. And that's why I vote for children to have better opportunities than the ones they have today. And so the opportunity, as Director Hinton Hodge said, is for Fremont to say, we're not going to stand idly by and be used by a charter. We're going to put better teachers in the classroom. We're going to give better support to our teachers. That is the opportunity. It is ours. It is not a divided room. The longer we perpetuate that stereotype, the longer it goes on.
Okay, roll call on the motion, please.
On the motion, Director Harris.
Yes.
Director Dobbins. Director Washington.
Yes.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director London.
No.
Vice President Hodge. President Kakashiba.
Yes.
Motion's adopted.
Thank you. First item under new business,